I've been talking a lot about consoles lately, so I've decided to talk about some games for a change. I'm going to start with Sony PSP games, because I want to. This list is just going to be about games I enjoyed playing, and there's no particular order here. These are games I like, and I'm sure my list will be quite different to yours. You'll probably notice a lot of really popular games are missing, but that's okay, everyone has different tastes after all. With that said, here are my PSP favorites.
Watch and learn.
I love the first Valkyria Chronicles. I own the original PS3 release, a couple of times, and also the PC port. I think it's a masterpiece. There's so much to say, I think I'll have to redo my old review of it, because I don't think I really did it justice, to be honest. The PSP sequel, Valkyria Chronicles 2, isn't as good, I think, but it still manages to be one of the best PSP games for me. It's an alternate reality World War II turn-based strategy RPG with real-time elements added on. You start off at this map view, select your unit, and then the game switches to third-person view, where things become real-time except for aiming. Once you're done your thing, it's the enemy's turn. That's a pretty simplistic explanation of the game. There have been some complaints about the game, like, for example, how it's way too easy, the maps are too small, and the fact that it's a school setting. I have to say, I agree that the direction the franchise took, compared to how the first game was, isn't exactly ideal, and I think some of the atmosphere of the first game was lost. But actually, when you think about it, a lot of the gameplay changes can be attributed to the fact that it was made for a handheld console. I used to commute to work for about an hour on the train, and there I realized that the gameplay changes made sense. Because the missions are shorter, it's actually a lot easier to play the game in short sessions. Also imagine if the game was harder. How frustrating would it be to have to start over, knowing you already spent 45 minutes trying to beat the mission you just failed, just as your stop is coming up. Overall, I find it a very enjoyable experience, and it's something very much worth checking out, I think. Another game franchise making a transition to the PSP is Gran Turismo. Oddly, it's just called Gran Turismo. That was very Need for Speed of them. Compared to the home console releases, it's not as fully featured, but it still has great physics and most things that make the big GT games good. It also runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, which is pretty awesome. Polyphony always manages to do stuff like that. They somehow made Gran Turismo 4 on the PS2 run at 60 frames per second at 1080i, so not surprisingly, the PSP version is quite good in that regard too. Nothing like having instant access to an R32 and Tsukuba circuit. I'm always up for some Disgaea, and the PSP got enhanced versions of the first two games. If you don't know what Disgaea is, just think of it as really complicated chess made by Japanese people. I think that explains it nicely. It's crazy and over the top, which I love. Both Disgaea 1 and 2 on the PSP feature some notable extras, like Edna mode for the first game and Axel mode for the second. There are also some more monsters you can create, character cameos from, hand quotes, later games, as well as some gameplay refinements. I think it's worth playing these games even if you've played the originals, just for Edna and Axel mode. I've been a long-time fan of the GTA series, and being able to play them on the go sounds great to me. Liberty City Stories is essentially GTA 3 with a different story, and set at a different time, and the same thing applies to Vice City Stories as well.
Driving a minivan.
Hey, at least my wife didn't put on 200 pounds.
There are some variations, like for example, some of the cars are different, but gameplay is what you'd expect if you've played GTA 3 or Vice City. Definitely good fun.
It's designed with a married male ego in mind. There's a cooler for beers, an 8,000-watt sound system.
Speaking of GTA games, there's also Chinatown Wars. I love this game in particular because it's top-down, just like the old GTA games. Yeah, I played GTA before it was in third-person perspective. Who would have ever thought that they'd do a game like this again? I find it funny how you can hear a lot of recycled GTA 2 noises. I actually kind of like that. I'm a bit surprised by how many sounds I recognize just by playing through the game. Speaking of recognizing things, Liberty City has made a decent transition to the top-down format. If you've played GTA 4, you'll probably spot a couple of familiar locations. Those streets have been made more angular, but given the constraints, everything's really well done. Now, this one might be a bit niche, but I really enjoyed Corpse Party. It does have a bit of a weird name though. It's an anime-style 16-bit top-down survival horror game. One of the reasons I like this has to do with how it looks. Since it's mostly done in a 16-bit style, a lot of the missing details are filled in by your imagination. I like that sort of thing when it comes to horror. That being said, I'm easily scared, so this may not apply to you. The story goes like this. A group of high schoolers, mostly, decide to perform a charm called Sachiko Ever After. Supposedly, performing the charm would ensure that the group always remain friends, but instead the group gets teleported to Heavenly Host Elementary School. That school was supposedly long torn down, but somehow it still exists in some sort of dimensional space. Everything's run down and the school is littered with various corpses and spirits, and there's no obvious way out. The game is split up into chapters. You have to explore the school and solve puzzles and, find items and stuff to advance the story and hopefully escape. That's kind of the point. The aim is to achieve the true end for each chapter, but there are a lot of bad ends. I found myself spending a lot of time actually trying to find all the various bad ends. I think Corpse Party does a good job with atmosphere. The music certainly helps with that. I think it's quite good. And that part with where you hear the piano in the distance, I think that's actually particularly memorable when it comes to the sound. As you play through the game, you'll find out about the stories of the students who died at the school. Yep, they were in the exact same situation you're in right now, and they died. That's encouraging. One thing I did find out of place was the occasional fan service. I'm definitely not against fan service, not even a little bit. But do I really need to see the characters' panties at this point? Maybe my eyes are just wandering where they shouldn't, but then again, the artist quite clearly made them visible on purpose. And that's not the only CG, it's just the only non-spoilerific CG I can show. But yeah, overall it's really good, I think so anyways. And I actually really want to do a review on this game at one point. A sequel to Corpse Party was also released called Book of Shadows rather. Instead of the pseudo Super Nintendo graphics, a point-and-click gameplay format was utilized. I like the 16-bit style of the previous game, but Book of Shadows still retains the same overall vibe, so it's okay. The game explores some storylines not really touched on in the other game, which is nice. But it still has the weird fan service going on. It just kind of, I don't know, it's like unsettling for me, but maybe that's supposed to be the point. But yeah, I think if you want to play this game, it makes sense to play the first Corpse Party game first. No matter how terrible I am at fighting games, I still like to play them. Tekken Dark Resurrection is what I would recommend picking up if you're looking for a good 3D fighter for the PSP. There are a lot of different characters, the graphics look good, frame rate is a smooth 60 frames per second, and all the game modes you'd want are included. And you can set it to easy, so that means even someone like me can win a fight or two.
You lose.
I know that Tekken 6 came out for the PSP as well, but there seems to be some discussion on the internet on which of the two games are better. Both Dark Resurrection and Tekken 6 are ports of home console games with various content cut in order to fit on a UMD and hit performance goals for the system. I'm personally not very well versed enough in the subject to recommend one over the other, so you might want to do some research before you go out and buy one of them, or just download both if you have a modded PSP. But for me, Dark Resurrection seems to fulfill my filthy casual needs just fine. And that's pretty much it. Perhaps a bit of an unorthodox list, and it's not that long either. As I said in the beginning of the video, there are lots of popular games missing, but hopefully you found the video interesting despite missing, probably some of your favorites. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.